I started finishing my thing, and next thing I know, it just went, update. And it decided to update for about 2 hours. And I'm like, and I was able to put it together. The first slide I had, what I was going to talk about today. I know after the Pastor Mary, we talked about his ordeal, and then Mary had talked about the Nephilim and faith and what's going on in our country today. I figured I was going to go Old Testament today. Yeah. And because I've heard sometimes people say, well, what does the Old Testament have to do for us? And I found the story, everybody knows the story of Joseph. And what I want to talk about today is faith and God's providence. And what is God's providence? God is in control. Even though others may intend other things to happen to us, or people may intend things, God still can direct around their free will. And I believe this is what Joseph's story is all about. And it's really a great thing. So what I started with is on this first slide, unfortunately you can't see it, was Jacob's children. So you probably all know the story of Jacob. He sold the brother's birthright for a bowl of lentil soup. Any of you sell your birthright for a bowl of lentil soup? But anyway, he did. He was so famous, he sold the birthright. He was a hairy man, Esau. So Jacob put some goat skins on and went in and tricked Dad. Got some venison, and they made some stew. Made it like he just got back from the hunt, and tricks him into giving him the praise as well, and prayer and the blessing. Esau comes back, and Esau's not happy, right? He's mad. He just, he's lost his birthright. He's lost his blessing, and Jacob got it all. So Mother Rebecca decides, let's send him to Uncle Laban. Sends him to Uncle Laban's family, and he meets a young girl named Rachel. And obviously, he sees Rachel, very beautiful, whatever, just attracted right to her. And so he goes out and meets Uncle Laban and the family, and tells Uncle Laban he wants to marry Rachel. So Uncle Laban says, okay, I'll tell you what, you work for me 7 years, and I'll give it to you in marriage. And Jacob says, fair deal. So he works for Uncle Laban for 7 years, and basically what happens at the end of 7 years, when that's up, Uncle Laban pulls up the best wine, and Joseph gets a little intoxicated, and they put him to bed, and they slide the first daughter, Leah, with him. And imagine Jacob's face the next morning when he wakes up and finally realizes what happens. He's upset. Why'd you do this to me? I work for Rachel. And Uncle Laban says, well, I'll tell you what, it's our custom that the oldest daughter get married first. So we had to marry her off you first. But I'll tell you what, you work another 7 years, I'll give you Rachel and you can have Rachel now, you don't have to wait this time. You can have them both. So he basically stays another 7 years. The part of that story is, obviously he loved Rachel very much, did not love Leah. So you can imagine how she felt during this whole relationship. But she has 4 children, 4 boys, Leah does, and Rachel's not able to have any. So Rachel says, you know what, I'm going to send my maidservant Bella to sleep with Jacob, and he bores her 2 sons. So Leah gets jealous, and I'm going to send my maidservant Zilpah to sleep with him, and she gives him 2 children. Then he comes back to Rachel again, and she gives him 2 more. And she's thinking at this point, now that I've born him 6 sons, surely he will love me. Obviously, she don't feel love, right? She knows she's not the one. And then she also has a daughter, Dinah. And then Rachel finally is able to have 2 children. And she bores them Joseph and Benjamin. His 2 youngest children. And obviously special to him because it's from the wife he really wanted, the one he really had chose. So this story is about Joseph. And the reason why I led off with that was because I want you to see that some of the brothers' jealousy, even though the Bible's going to tell us it's because it's his youngest, I believe it's from that whole ordeal. He loves them because they're Rachel's children. I think that's one big, real reason which sets the stage for all this. So, without further ado, so if somebody wants to read Genesis 37, 2-4.
This is the history of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers. And the lad was with the sons of Bilhah, and the sons of
this whole family thing going on. He's the youngest, obviously he's the beloved. Makes him a beautiful ornamented robe. My brothers get jealous, right? But what else does he do? He brings back bad reports about it. So Joseph is a responsible kind of character, right? He thinks things need to be done right and live right. And so he's bringing back bad reports about them. So I'm sure that kind of feeds into the anger as well. One night Joseph has a dream. And this is Genesis 37, 5-7. I'll read it to you here and then I'll switch it over. One night Joseph had a dream. And when he told his brothers about it, they hated him even more. Listen to this dreamer, he said. We were out in the field tying up bundles of grain. Suddenly my bundle stood up, and your bundles all gathered around and bowed low before me. Basically, he was telling them by this dream, you're going to bow down to me someday. So this incited him even more, right? He's daddy's favorite, he's daddy's little brat, he's his favorite, and he's got all the favor here. And he has another dream here. And this other dream is 11 stars, sun and the moon bowing down to one star, which is him. So his father gets involved, and he's like, are you saying your brothers and me and your mother are going to bow down to you? Wow, and he rebukes him. But after he keeps the thought in mind, because he goes, I don't know what these dreams really mean. So he knew there was something to it. He was something to the story. So what's going to happen now? He tells Joseph to run up to meet his brothers in the field. If somebody wants to read 37, 18 through 20. Go ahead, sir.
I can actually see it. And when they saw him far off, even before he came near them, they conspired against him to kill him. And they said to one another, look, this dreamer is coming. Come therefore, let us now kill him and cast him into some pit. And we shall say, some wild beast has devoured him. We shall see what he comes to dreams.
So they want to kill him. Wow. Yeah, they want to kill him. The good news here is the oldest son, the very first son born, Jacob, Reuben, doesn't like that idea. He doesn't think this is a good idea. He knows it's going to really hurt his father. And he knows the blood will be on them. So he tells him, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Let's not kill him. Maybe we should throw him into a pit and just, we'll leave him there and pick what we want to. So he talks him out of killing him immediately. They're calming him down. And if somebody would like to read Genesis 37, 26 through 28, Judah, who the Jews come from, right? In Christ, speaks up here in 37, 26 through 28.
So Judah said to his brothers, what profit is there if we kill our brother and conceal his body? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother in our flesh. And his brothers listen.
So we decide he's going to sell him to the Ishmaelites, right? Which is basically it's grandpa's brother, right? Half brother. The Ishmael, and that's who they're descended from. So he decides to sell them. And in 28, he says this, when the Ishmaelites, who were Midianite traders, came by Joseph's brothers, pulled him out of the cistern, and sold him to them for 20 shekels of silver. And the traders took him off to Egypt. So he ends up going to Egypt. Now, I don't know what you guys are thinking at this point, which Joseph might be thinking, but my brothers ripped my robe off. They want to kill me. They throw me into a pit. And now they've sold me to the enemy, kind of. And to me as a slave. I don't know how you would feel, but I start to feel like, is God with me, right? Is God with me? I mean, what's going on here? Things were going really well. And I've been ripped from my father's hand, I've been stripped, and sold into slavery.
There's not a pit anymore.
And he's 17 years old. So you can imagine, in my mind, what I would be thinking, I would like, what happened to my faith right now? That's what I always ask myself. And then if somebody wants to read Genesis 37, 31 through 32. Yeah, 37, 31, and 32. Yeah.
So they took Joseph's tunic, killed a kid of the goats, and dipped the tunic in the blood. Then they sent the tunic of many colors, and they brought it to their father and said, we have found this.
he's gonna know it's his son's doing it, right? So they covered the whole plot up. In Genesis 37:36, it says this, meanwhile, Midianite travelers arrived in Egypt. There they sold Joseph to Potiphar, and an officer of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. Potiphar was captain of the palace guard. He's a pretty prestigious guy. He's in charge of the palace guard. They sold Joseph to Potiphar. And I'd like to read this next one real quick, just because in the version I've got it. It's Genesis 39:2-6. It says, the Lord was with Joseph, so he succeeded in everything he did as he served in the home of the Egyptian master. Potiphar noticed this and realized that the Lord was with Joseph. Potiphar noticed this, giving him success in everything he did. This pleased Potiphar, so he soon made Joseph his personal attendant. He put him in charge of his entire household over everything he owned. From the day Joseph was put in charge of his master's household and property, the Lord began to bless Potiphar's household for Joseph's sake. So he's doing this for Joseph's sake, right? He's building Joseph up, making him look good, blessing him. So Potiphar gave Joseph complete administrative responsibility over everything he owned. With Joseph, he didn't worry about a thing. So again, it shows Joseph's character. He doesn't have to worry about a thing, right? He's taking care of business, he does business right. But what I want to point out is God is with him. And Joseph recognizes this. So he's a slave now in Egypt. Like I said, he's a stripper of his home, and he really recognizes that God's with him. One little thing happens to him here. Potiphar's wife happens to notice that he's a good-looking man. Handsome guy, handsome young fellow. And somebody wants to read Genesis 3:9 for me. 39:9, I'm sorry. Yep.
There is no one greater in this house than I, nor has he kept back anything from me but you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?
So Joseph again using his character, right? How could I do this wicked thing? So she keeps asking day after day, come on, sleep with me, sleep with me, sleep with me. And he keeps telling her, no, this isn't right, this is a sin. You know, my master put me in charge, I'm not going to disgrace and dishonor him either. Somebody want to read Genesis 39:12-13?
I'm good. Then she caught him by his garment, saying, lie with me. But he left his garment in her hand and fled and ran outside. And so it was, when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and fled outside, that she called the men of her house, spoke to them, saying, see, he has brought in to us a Hebrew to mock us.
Wow. So she's throwing him under the bus, trying to say, hey, this guy was trying to have his way with me. Verse 16 says she kept the cloak with her until her husband came home, and she told him her story. That Hebrew slave you brought into our house tried to come and fool around with me, she said. But when I screamed, he ran outside, leaving his cloak with me. This poor guy again is getting railroaded, right? Somebody want to read Genesis 39:21-23?
The Lord was with Joseph, who showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. The keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all prisoners who were in prison. Whatever they did there was his doing. The keeper of the prison did not look into anything that was under Joseph's authority, because the Lord was with him. And whatever he did, the Lord made it prosper.
Amen.
Again, the Lord is with him right now. So what happens is Potiphar comes home, his wife tells him this, he has him thrown in jail. So now he's going from being sold to being a slave, now he's a criminal. Oh God, is there any worse thing than that, right? He's a criminal now, according to these guys. But what happens? He gets there, and the Lord is with him again. And the jail master sees the wonderful things he does, puts him in charge of the whole jail. And he doesn't have to worry about anything. Everything Joseph does succeeds, because again, the Lord is with him. So I can imagine poor Joseph's in jail there now. How would I be feeling? You know, hearing these things, he's gotta be, like, excited, because the Lord is at least with him. But I don't know how about you feel, if you've been thrown in jail, but, you know, I'm sure it's, you know, sometimes I wonder if his faith was shaking at all. And then, what happens while he's in jail, the cupbearer and the chief baker of Pharaoh gets angry with him and he throws them in the jail. So Joseph sees them and sees they're sad, and Joseph asks him what's going on, and he tells him he had a dream. So Joseph says, okay, what was your dream? He asks the cupbearer. And he tells him his dream, and basically he says in 3 days, you're going to go back to Pharaoh, and he's going to restore you back to being a cupbearer. Wow, good dream, good dream. And Joseph says, hey, when you go back, don't forget, when you go back, make sure you tell Pharaoh about me, you know, so, you know, how I'm unjustly put in here. And then the chief baker asks him the same thing. And he tells him, your dream means also 3 days. But Pharaoh's going to take your life. You're not going to be restored. So one he's going to be restored, the other's going to be. So, I'll read Genesis 40, 14 through 15 here. And it says, this is what he says, Joseph, and please remember me, and do me a favor when things go well for you. Mention me to Pharaoh so that he might let me out of this place. For I was kidnapped from my homeland, the land of the Hebrews, and now I'm here in prison, but I didn't do anything to deserve it. Pharaoh's chief cupbearer, however, forgot all about Joseph, never giving him another thought. So here he forgets all about the wonderful thing Joseph said to him and done to him, and doesn't give him another thought. So I'm going to let you know that 2 years goes by, 2 full years goes by, and Pharaoh's having some dreams. And so we want to read Genesis 41, 8 through 9.
Now it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all his wise men. And Pharaoh told them his dreams, but there was no one who could interpret them for Pharaoh. Then the chief butler spoke to Pharaoh, saying, I remember my faults this day. When Pharaoh was angry with his servants, he put me in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, both me and the chief baker. We each had a dream in one night, he and I, each of us dreams according to the interpretation of our own dreams.
So he tells Pharaoh, I know this guy, I know how to interpret dreams. Now think about that. None of his wise men, none of his black magic people, nobody can tell him the dream. Amazing, just like nobody could save them when they were trying to get out of Egypt. This is God. You guys see God working through this whole story. So this cupbearer forgets about him, and all of a sudden Pharaoh's dream reminds him, right? God jogs his memory today. He gives him this thing. So Pharaoh sends for Joseph, right? Right away. And Joseph comes. And he tells Joseph, I have 6 dreams. And I heard that you can interpret dreams. And this is what Joseph said to him in 41:16. It is beyond my power to do this, Joseph replied, but God can tell you what it means in such ways. So he says, hey, this isn't me. This is God that can do this. This is God. So basically, somebody wants to read Genesis 41:25 through 27. We're going to see what these dreams are about.
Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, the dreams of Pharaoh are one. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years. The 7 good heads are 7 years. The dreams are one. And the 7 thin and ugly cows which came up after them are 7 years. And the 7 empty heads lighted by the east wind are 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken to Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do.
So the dreams, that's what the dreams meant. There's 70 years of prosperity coming, but then there's 7 years of famine coming that are going to ravage the land like never before. So Joseph tells him, God's revealing to you what's about ready to happen. And he's doing this for a reason. He's warning you because we can do something about this. 38 through 40. So Pharaoh asked his officials, can we find anyone else like this man? So obviously filled with the Spirit of God. We recognize that Joseph had the Spirit, right? Joseph's filled with the Spirit of God. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has revealed the meaning of the dreams to you, clearly, no one else is intelligent or as wise as you. You will be in charge of my court, and all my people will take orders from you. Only I, sitting on my throne, will have rank higher than yours. He's promoted again. So I don't know if you guys are seeing the pattern here, but he has some bad things happen to him. He sees God working with him, he has faith in God, he gets promoted. There's another level. Right? Paul still stays, has his faith with God, still continues to work with God, sees God's favor, and he's promoted again. And continues to get promoted. Now he's promoted to second in command, basically, of all Egypt. So he's really been taken a long way. But he recognizes the whole time this is God. So God's working with him. And through this whole thing, he's helping his faith, he's helping build his faith, he's helping him grow while he's working his plan. Because his plan, I'm sure, originally wasn't to do harm to Joseph, but it was to get him to where he needed him to get in order to carry out what he needed to carry out. Amen. Amen. So, what ends up happening now is Joseph's brothers are in the land when the famine is happening. So they don't have any food. So the father gives them some silver and some stuff and sends them down to Egypt and says, well, buy us some food. So they go down and they have to stand in front of Joseph because they don't recognize him at the time at first. And then Joseph recognizes them immediately. You know, he knows who they are. And kind of plays with them a little bit. Because you guys are spying on the land. I know that's why you're here. And they're like, no, we're here to buy food, honest. No, you're spying. So he wants a bunch of them to stay and only one to go back. And they kind of argue back and forth. And finally said, I'll tell you what, one of your brothers stay. The rest of you go back. And you need to bring your younger brother with you to prove to me that you have this younger brother you said you have, and you're going to eat your family. So they're reluctant because obviously that's all Dad has left now is the younger brother, right? It's his other favorite. So they're troubled by this. So anyway, they go back and they get Benjamin and they bring Benjamin to them. And they have a good time. They sit down, they have a time, do all kinds of wonderful things. And at the end, he gives them all kinds of silver and things to take with them back to the family. But he takes a silver cup. That was one of his servants. Take this silver cup and stick it in the sack of the young one. So he lets them take off, and then he pursues them to take somebody who stole my cup. So they look through all the knapsacks, and they find the cup in Benjamin's thing. So now the boy has to stay with me. And they're pleading, please, don't let us not go back with this boy to our father. He'll really bring his head to the grave. And I mean, the whole time I know Joseph's emotions are messing up with him as well because he knows what he's doing and what's going on. So he convinces them to go back and bring Dad back, and they all went back to Egypt. And finally, he reveals himself to them. And if somebody wants to read Genesis 43, 26 through 27.
And when Joseph came home, they brought him a present which was in their land into the house and bowed down before him to the earth. Then he asked them about their well-being and said, is your father well? The old man who was spoke, is he still alive? And they answered, yes. Your servant, our father, is in good health. He's still alive. And they bowed their head down and prostrated themselves.
They bowed down to him. The dream came true. Like I said, so they bow down to him. They go back and they get Dad. They bring Dad back. They still, they finally learn that Joseph finally tears burst out and says, I'm Joseph, I'm your brother. So now they're really scared, right? Because they're thinking, if we second in command, this is what we did to him. Oh my Lord, this is what we did to him. What are you going to do? So if somebody would like to read Genesis 45, 4 through 8.
And Joseph said to his brothers, please come near to me. So they came near. Then he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. But now, do not therefore be grieved or angry with yourselves, because you sold me here, for God sent me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years, the famine has been in the land, and there are still 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. And God sent me before you to preserve a prosperity for you in the earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So now it was not you who sent me here, but God. And he has made me a father to Pharaoh and Lord of all this house and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt.
Amazing. Amen. How God can take something somebody intended for bad and turn it around so amazingly. And I got a couple more pieces for you. I want to talk to the world today. Even though things are happening out there, you know, and like Mary said, things are going to happen, strange occurrences. You know, we need to have to keep our faith in God. Because even though we might see things or things might bad happening to us right now, God is still working in that story. He's always with us. He's always working. And we got to keep this in mind. Amen. So, now, in Genesis 50, 19 through 20, this is really the pinnacle of it. It says, but Joseph replied, don't be afraid of me. Am I God that I can punish you? You intended to harm me. What you intended to do for harm. But God intended it for good. So what you try to use for harm, he used for his good and his glory. He brought me to this position so I could save lives of many people and save a remnant. So he was working his plan this whole time at the same time. Now, one thing that happens during the next 5 years of famine is people keep selling, keep giving money. Finally, they run out of gold and silver. They start selling cattle. They start selling possessions. They sell their house, their land. Eventually, they sell themselves into slavery bondage. Not bondage, slavery. And make a deal. The deal is, I'll give you seed, and you can plant the land and work the land and stay there. But you got to give Pharaoh a fifth of all your seed and all your harvest every year. So this became what ended up happening. So all the Egyptians and all the Hebrews that he brought with him were all under the same rule. And I don't know if you guys realize that, but this is starting at the beginning of them growing in Egypt, becoming slaves in Egypt, and God working his next purpose. So God brought them there, right, so they can survive, and he's also going to bring them there so he can show his mighty arm against the Egyptian gods. So that story continues to work and work and work. It's just amazing. I find it amazing how he used us like that. And that's really the message I wanted to deliver today was, we can see God working, and then sometimes we can't. But just because we can't see it doesn't mean he isn't. That's what
It's kind of like Pastor Gary's story, we had that really bad thing happen, but it was all for a purpose. We couldn't see it, but it all came through at the end. We don't always see God's purpose at the time where it's at.
So basically, like Pastor Barry said, if you're Matthew and you're sinking in the ocean, don't think God's not really reach his hand out and pull you out. He's not going to let us go all the way under and drown. So while we see these wild times and these things going on and things may happen in our lives, health problems, things, just like Pastor Barry's health problem, God's always working his purpose for each and every one of our lives. And that's what gives us faith. That's what keeps the faith alive. Even though Pastor Barry maybe thought like that, I think we've all been there. It felt like we've lost a little faith, and things start getting bad. We just kind of like, what's going on, And even sometimes when our faith isn't as good, maybe it's small as a mustard seed, he still shows up. Amen. That's our God. Our God.
He's good all the time.
He's good all the time. And I leave you with this thought. He's awesome. I leave you with this thought. This is Jesus speaking to his disciples. I got one New Testament scripture for you. This is Jesus speaking to his disciples. Get ready to send the 12 home. And this is something for us all even today. Matthew 10, 18 to 20. And I'll read it. It says, you will stand trial before governors and kings because you are my followers. But this will be your opportunity to tell the rulers and other unbelievers about me. When you are arrested, don't worry about how to respond or what to say. God will give you the right words at the right time. For it is not you who will speak. It will be the Spirit of your Father speaking through you. So have courage. Remember that. We're getting under trials and tribulations, tested and fighting that. God is with us. We have the Spirit. He will speak for us and through us, and work with us and be with us. So no matter what it looks like out there, we live by faith, not by sight. Amen. Amen. Don't care what it looks like.